I guess my takeaway is there's worse places he could have landed. He gets Matt Rule. He gets DJ Moore. They got a rookie left tackle. I don't know. I think he could have landed in Seattle. They feel like they're tanking. He could have landed in Atlanta. What do you make of it?
Okay, so I have mixed feelings on this. I feel like it's a necessary move for the Carolina Panthers to shore up the quarterback room. But I think it would be interesting to see Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold in training camp. The way the money is split up, the Browns are taking on $10 million. The Panthers are paying Baker Mayfield $5 million, which is backup money. Yeah. This legitimately could be a quarterback competition.
Oh, I think it could be, yeah.
Yeah, the conditional pick status doesn't really mean anything. A fifth turns to a fourth, those things to protect yourself if he plays well. It is going to be really interesting because these guys were classmates in terms of the draft. We've talked about it. Baker was number 1. Sam was, 3 or whatever. So now we get an opportunity to see these guys throw every day. And the one thing that is always hard for evaluators is one thing to hear about somebody. It's another thing to put them on the same field throwing back to back. Sam Darnold is a bigger, stronger, faster prospect. Baker Mayfield, by all accounts, has played better in the league, but Baker Mayfield has also had a better supporting cast.
Oh, great O-line.
He had great offensive line, 2 Pro Bowl running backs, 2 Pro Bowl wide receivers, and he still was a bottom third quarterback. Sam Darnold has never been afforded that opportunity. So now when you have an even-Steven contest, it will be interesting to see how this plays out. And I would say that Baker is behind the 8 ball, because he's joining the team in July. July 6th, he gets on the team. They go to training camp. He'll have to learn the playbook in training camp. Sam Darnold knows the playbook. And then by all accounts, Sam Darnold has already built relationships with the teammates. We could say that maybe the reason why Baker is out of Cleveland is not because of how he played on the field, but how he got along with others.
Yeah.
Never forget, the quarterback position is a leadership position. You have to get along. You have to encourage, enlighten, inspire your teammates. Is Baker be a great teammate? And then let's think about this. What if Baker doesn't win it? Can Baker be a good backup? Because we've heard people talk about the backup quarterback position. The backup is to support the starter, to make sure that the starter has all the things that he needs to have to be a successful starter. The backup quarterback can't be pining for the starter's job. So what does this look like? To me, it might be, in wrestling terms, a loser leave town match. Whoever wins the quarterback position stays. The loser has to go somewhere else.
Who do you? What's your gut feeling?
Look, man, I've said this. I think that Sam Darnold has an opportunity to win this job. I think Sam Darnold will be a much better performer in front of Baker Mayfield. It's one thing when you come in.
Because you're a former scout.
Now, and I said this, and this is no knock or whatever to Baker, but what happens is, once you leave that first spot, you're now just like everybody else. All the special cachet about being the number 1 overall pick, all that goes by the wayside because the Panthers didn't draft him and they didn't give up significant capital.
They got nothing.
So now it is all about performance and the way that you get along with others. And so it'll be a true competition. So now I think this is an even Steven. I think this is a coin flip. I wouldn't just say that, hey, Baker Mayfield is going to be the starting quarterback week 1. I think he's going to have to win the job.
The thing about Baker that's interesting, I always thought one of his strengths was accuracy. But what was fascinating, despite that running game, which means you throw in play action a lot, despite the pass protection, which was excellent, his accuracy dipped. Is it all injury? I thought over the last year, with a good offensive coach, I was shocked at his erosion completing sometimes simple NFL passes.
And so, here's the thing, and people will say, I'm going to be super hard on Baker Mayfield. Everyone has given him a pass off last year. Baker's been in the league for 4 years. He had 1 solid year out of those things. His rookie year was fine, but it wasn't super impressive. Second year was a regression. Third year, he played better. They got to the playoffs and won, but the numbers aren't spectacular.
No.
And then last year. So at some point, he is going to have to put up numbers. And we can say the same for Sam Darnold. So for me, this is a true competition. Neither guy should be penciled in as the starter. It is really one of those things where you split the reps evenly and you let the performance dictate who is the starting quarterback for the team.
You were a former scout for the Panthers. So let me ask you this. This is an impatient owner, and I think Matt Rule knows he got to win some games this year. Or at least they have to look like they're headed in a direction, right? Mm-hmm. So they have shored up their offensive line a little bit, which Darnold's talented enough to overcome to some degree a bad O-line. I don't think Baker is. Baker needs protection. He's a smaller guy. not as athletic. How long do you make it a quarterback competition? You can't go on into August 18th. I mean, how many practices does Matt Rule give these guys before he sits down with his staff and goes, fellas, we got to make a call on this. I'm not going into the season with 6 practices with my guy.
It's tough. You only have 3 preseason games. So the normal pecking order and the old thing would be the third game would be when you see the starters do the full deal. That's when you make all the decisions. Now it's the second preseason game is the dress rehearsal. The final one is just one that you kind of throw away. For Baker, the makeup ground, Baker would have to be sensational in training camp to win it in a preseason game and a half. I would just have to think that Sam Darnold starts the year as the starter, and then when Sam Darnold falters, if he falters, then Baker Mayfield slides in. I just don't know how you can do it so quickly because you talked about an abbreviated training camp. They start the 26th, 27th. You have 2 weeks, a game, and then another game. You have to make a decision. That is quick. I mean, either Sam Darnold just absolutely wets the bed and Baker Mayfield is spectacular, or this is one where it has to play out a little longer until we get into the season to see how it goes.
I also think, and this is something that having scouted and played in this league, you know this as well as anybody, ownership matters. And, Seattle right now, the owner came out and said, we're not selling. That actually helps. That creates less chaos. Denver has a new owner. Carolina's got an owner that is not patient. And Matt Rule can feel that. So does that change Matt Rule a little bit, saying, hey, listen, we haven't won with Darnold. I can buy myself time going with Baker. Coaches can be selfish.
Yeah, no, you can do that. I think it all depends on how it looks and how it feels, because ultimately Matt Rule has to make a decision that the team can get behind. And so that's why the performance really matters.
You can't fool the players.
We've heard it. We've seen it. When they run onto the field together and they're going through those on-air passes and 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 drills, Matt Rule can make his mind and say, hey, I want to go with Baker. But if the team is looking and it's close, or Darnold is clearly better, it's going to be hard to make that move because he not only runs the risk of losing game, he's going to lose his team. And if his team isn't going to play for him, then it's going to be hard for Matt Rule to keep his job. So to me, this is one where, if anything, you err on the side of caution. You give Sam Darnold every opportunity to win it, and then Baker has to take the job. I don't think you can kind of set it up where, hey, Baker's going to be our starter and we're going to set it up this way. I think it's too hard. He has to outplay Sam to win it.
Okay, so now the last quarterback on the market that we know can play is Jimmy Garoppolo. So Garoppolo had a surgery. We know what he is and what he isn't. He's a little injury prone, throws a decent ball, very strong locker room presence. Guys really like him, got some alpha. Actually, at times is better in crisis than he is in the second quarter. What do you think the future of Jimmy Garoppolo holds? Because my knock on this situation is, pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. San Francisco got to a Super Bowl, give up a second-round pick. Mm-hmm. You got to figure this Trey Lance thing out. This kid needs snaps. And everybody said, well, it's Jimmy's locker room. There's only one way to solve that. Get Jimmy out of town. So I think San Francisco, I really do believe, Bucky, they know deep down, we got to give this Trey thing a shot, and he'll never own that room if Jimmy, who's wildly popular, is in the same locker room. I think they have to move him. I think they will. Do you agree with that, and what's the landing spot?
Well, I mean, I do agree with it. I think it's very similar to the Mac Jones, Cam Newton thing.
They got him out.
Bill Belichick had to get Cam Newton out of the locker room because as long as Cam is there, his aura and his presence would overshadow Mac Jones. And so for Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't have that Cam Newton-type aura, but he certainly has the feel of the locker room. He took the guys to the Super Bowl. They played really well. You look at his record. They win when he is the quarterback. Despite all the flaws that we may point out, they win when he's the quarterback. And so if he comes back, it makes it very, very difficult for Trey Lance to operate. And even if you do a quarterback competition, everyone on the team will say, this is great preseason and all that, but we've gone to war with Jimmy Garoppolo and we've won games with him. So he has to move. The problem is Jimmy Garoppolo has been hurt. We haven't seen him throw and perform. And all the chairs, all the dance chairs are all filled up. Like, where does he go? Where does he land?
Seattle?
Can you trade him to an in-division rival? And then if you're Seattle, Seattle, to me, feels like Pete Carroll wants to reclaim his locker room back because he had a celebrity quarterback, all this stuff. He kind of maybe went away from what he believed in offensively, team building wise, in terms of this is how we need to win games. So maybe he doesn't want a quarterback in there now. He just wants to build it up from the ground up. Jimmy Garoppolo, to me, would be interesting. Like, if the thing comes back, Deshaun Watson's out for a year. Does he go to Cleveland? Because the offense is similar. We've seen him operate. We've seen him operate when he's had talented weapons around him. It would be weird because he and Jacoby Brissett were both in New England together, but that's the situation. Outside of that, I don't know. I don't know where he goes. It's similar to Baker. I had no idea where Baker Mayfield would land because there are not any spots available right now.
You know, the one that I've thought about is Tampa when Tom leaves.
Yes, but then what would Tom feel like?
Well, it's Tom's team.
Yeah, what would Tom feel like? Because now I said this somewhere yesterday. I felt like prior to Baker being traded, I felt like if I'm Baker Mayfield, I push my way to get to Tampa because if I go to Tampa and now we'll put Jimmy Garoppolo in that. If I'm Jimmy Garoppolo and I look who's behind Tom Brady, if Tom Brady plays another year, I got to beat out Blaine Gabbert and Kyle Trask. I'll bet on myself in that scenario. It's just a matter of can Jimmy Garoppolo go from being a starter to being a backup again behind Tom Brady? And what was that relationship like when they split from New England? All of that would have to be resolved. But I think it's a nice idea if you bring him there because he's certainly more than a high-end backup, but it would give you maybe a succession plan in place.
Yeah, and I think one of the real compliments about Garoppolo is he's a team guy. I mean, San Francisco, I mean, they really like him. I mean, we bring guys on, Niners, they're like, people like Jimmy Garoppolo. He is, there's just certain guys that they walk into a room and there's a certain temperature about him. I think he's one of those guys. So I think the Tampa Bay thing could work if they could make the money work. One other NFL question. So one of the more fascinating teams to me is Miami. Mm-hmm. So they have pivoted as a franchise from the defensive side of the ball to the offensive side. And this is something I've talked about. Brian Flores struggled with Tua. Zimmer struggled with Cousins. Vic Fangio struggled. Pete struggled with Russell. Belichick struggled with Brady. We're seeing time and time again as the game becomes more offensive and quarterbacks are empowered, these defensive coaches sometimes don't want to lose the room, to your point with Pete and Russ. So they have gone in Miami and they've said they've made a quick pivot. We are spending money on offense, and I like the move, though I thought Brian Flores was excellent. Here's the enigma part of it. I think Tua is very limited. He feels like a left-handed Mac Jones to me. Can't make plays off script, smaller than I want, average arm. I think they're going to be really dynamic offensively. And I think they're going to make the playoffs. And then I think Miami's going to be trapped. This has been a little bit of the Dak Prescott issue. When you have that O-line, and Amari, and Zeke in his prime, Dak's pretty good. And now Zeke's not as good, and Amari's gone. And Tyron Smith can't give you 13 starts, and I'm paying Dak 40. Miami is fascinating. We're going to have to make a judgment as they improve this year. Is it Tua or is it the system? Because as you know, McDaniel's system is Shanahan's system.
Yes.
It makes every quarterback. Matt Schaub made a Pro Bowl in that system.
You're so good at what you do because you slid in a dig at Dak Prescott. We're talking about Tua Tagovailoa. You slid in this dig about Dak being pedestrian while we're talking about Tua. Here's what I'll say about Tua. I think this is a great opportunity for Tua to play the game the way that he needs to play it. I think people have forgotten the whole tank for Tua, watching Tua at Alabama, watching Tua as a young player at Alabama, throw the ball down the field to Jalen Waddle for a touchdown and a honey hole shot. He now has playmakers around him that can allow him to play the game. Here's one of the best RPO quarterbacks that I've seen in terms of his catch, throw, get it out. He can do that. He now has playmakers that are excellent running after the catch. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. He has a running game that's going to be behind him. Cedric Wilson. So they have all of that. So what I would say is now or never for Tua in Miami. But I expect him to play great. Now, I do believe it's been overblown, some of the deep ball stuff. I think in the past, the protection up front, they couldn't protect long enough for him to throw it down the field.
Still not a great O-line.
Still not a great. And the ball has to come out. I think Mike McDaniels talked about you can't have 8 seconds to chunk it down the field 60 yards in today's game. And so I think the accuracy, if Tua Tagovailoa is at his best, he needs to play the game in a fashion that reminds us of Drew Brees. Ball is out. Ball goes to the playmaker. Connect the dots. High efficiency, completion rate of high 60s to 70. If he's doing that, he'll be fine. But then you do have to make the decision because the money at quarterback.
It's the Kirk Cousins dilemma.
Yeah, because now $40 million is a lot, which is why the Baker Mayfield thing was tough, because you want the $40 million quarterback to make it right when the plays aren't right. And so if your quarterback doesn't have superhero powers, it makes it tough to say, hey, we're going to make him a $40 or $50 million quarterback going forward.
That's good stuff. Again, Baker Mayfield traded to Carolina. I, Mr. Glass half full, am fairly optimistic about it, but let's revisit your position, which is probably the right position, which is you think it's incredibly hard.
Yeah, super hard.
Sam's got relationships, the playbook, he knows the staff.
Time is on Sam Darnold's side because it's such a condensed window. Remember, Cam Newton talked about this going to New England. He said he rushed and learned the playbook, but he never felt comfortable knowing everything. It's tough because learning a foreign language. So, I mean, can he learn a foreign language in 4 weeks and execute it and know where everything is? And remember, new offensive coordinator, Ben McAdoo.
Snaps. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, Ben McAdoo comes in. So Sam Darnold has been with Ben McAdoo since the entire offseason program. Baker Mayfield, this is all brand new, completely different feel. We haven't even seen it on film. So for Baker, he won't be able to get those reps. They can't send him game film and say, hey, this is what it looks like. It's all brand new. So that's what I'm saying. He is climbing up a hill to try and catch Sam Darnold to be the starter by week 1. To me, it's Sam Darnold's job to lose. Baker will have to win it in the middle of the season.
Excellent work. I can't believe I needed Bucky Brooks today, and you...
I popped up out the ground. I was driving in my car, listening to you make bets on all kinds of stuff, the Minnesota Vikings and the tall Xiaomi, all this craziness.
Lions,
and I was like, I couldn't get to the studio fast enough to straighten this out.
He appeared. You said his name, and he slowly appeared around the camera. I was like,
literally,
wait.
You're only missing the cape. You were Superman out of a phone booth. Bucky Brooks, great seeing you as always. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.